Hi everyone,
I'm Lotte.
I'm Andres,
I'm Saskia.
and we're the ones in charge of the Journal Initiative at MSB Vector. We're currently in the Netherlands working hard on our project, aiming to reduce the methane emissions from cows. We hope that through these series, we can support you so that we can, together, create a more meaningful final product. We wish you all the best of luck in your projects and hope to see you soon in Paris.
Bye.
Welcome to Workshop 1 of this workshop series. This workshop is divided into different parts. First of all, we would like to talk about why you should participate in our workshops. Second of all, we will more specifically talk about what you will learn during these workshops. Then we will quickly go into the importance of scientific articles, and then finally we will go into the writing process itself, and lastly we will look at the article structure. So, why should you participate in our workshops? Being a researcher or scientist means that you have to put your results into words and communicate them properly to other scientists or other target audiences. In our series of workshops, we will focus on how to write an academic article, as this may be the most common challenge for scientists. Before starting, it is helpful to make a general distinction between a primary research article and a secondary research article. So, primary research collects research data themselves to then formulate these research results into a proper article. Secondary research articles are solely based on research of other researchers. So this means that there is no actual laboratory research conducted. And most likely in high school and your first years of university, you will be writing secondary research articles. So, what will you learn from these workshops? You will develop your personal writing skills, which will not only help you in this project, but will benefit you for the rest of your studies. You will learn how to structure your ideas and properly formulate arguments to convince the reader of your ideas. In our workshops, you will also get better acquainted with the English of academic writing, which is the basis of good articles. Even if you are familiar with scientific writing, you can use these workshops to recognize your strengths and weaknesses and improve on them. Our goal is to communicate the art of scientific writing to you in a fun, easy, but informative manner. Why is it important to write scientific articles? Writing clear, accurate, and concise papers ensures that other scientists will build upon your research, and this contributes to the progression of science and therefore benefits you as well as your fellow scientists and the world at large. A well-written scientific paper is more likely to be cited by other scientists and therefore draws more attention to the research that you have done, as well as furthers the development of science itself. How do we approach the writing process, though? First of all, you might be overwhelmed and not know how to start writing. To make this easier for you, you can divide the writing process into different stages. You start with the thinking stage, where you determine the topic of your paper and then continue to collect ideas through brainstorming. If you have a general idea into which direction you want to go into, you start by reviewing previous literature in order to study the background and also potential gaps of knowledge in the topic of your interest. After this, you start outlining your paper, and for that you will have to determine the main purpose of your paper. And this will guide you through the whole paper, as you want to fulfill this purpose statement at the end of your article. And if you have done this, you will need to draft the actual paper itself. At the end, it is essential to go over your paper and critically start revising. This will result in edits and ultimately lead to your final version of the paper. What is important to keep in mind when writing a scientific article? There are 3 things you need to keep in mind during the writing process, and we constantly need to remind ourselves of these aspects. First, it is very important that you are precise in your writing, and this means that you should use very concrete language that does not result in any ambiguity. So for instance, avoid the use of metaphors and humor. Second, you have to be very clear in your writing style. This means to use proper but simple language and not make the sentences unnecessarily complicated. So make sure that you pay attention to sentence grammar and structure. And lastly, you should be objective. This includes a passive tone or voice when writing, so do not use any emotion or personal pronouns. A scientific article is based on facts, so avoid making any assumptions. Okay, so now we are aware that throughout the whole writing process, we need to be precise, clear, and objective. Now to the next point. How do we structure an article? Generally, in a scientific article, the abstract comes first, followed by the introduction, methods, results, discussion, and conclusion, and references, of course. And even though this is the order that it appears in, it is not the actual order you write your article in. What is meant by this is that you write your introduction first, and only at the end you start to write the abstract to your paper, because the abstract should summarize your results, discussion, and relevance. And this is why it makes sense to write your abstract at the end. So let's start with the introduction. Your introduction is very important as it is one of the first paragraphs that your reader reads. If it is not well written, your reader may not want to continue reading. In the introduction, you introduce the broader subject area of your research, together with some background information that is relevant for the reader to understand the paper. After this, you will state the purpose of the paper, together with a brief outline of how you will approach writing the paper. Then follow the middle section of your paper, where you present the methods that you use and the results that you have obtained. This middle section is usually the largest part of your paper. Then you will conclude with a discussion and results section, where you will discuss and interpret the previously outlined results. Here you will relate your discussion back to your problem statement of the introduction and, most importantly, try to answer this purpose statement. Now that you have a general idea of what scientific writing is about, you can start thinking about the topic that you intend to write an article about. And stay tuned for our next workshops, where everything I've mentioned now will be discussed in more detail.